And up next is a man that needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. So please join me in welcoming your state herpetologist, JD, who will be giving an update on Virginia herps from the Department of Wildlife Resources.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come up here every year to do this update. A lot going on. I'm not going to be able to cover everything. I only got 15 minutes, and but it's great to see a big audience. I mean, it's like they're going to have to start taking this wall out and start making more room for next year. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So let me just get going here. There we go. Just kind of give you a 30,000 foot perspective and then kind of drill down on some individual projects that are going on. Virginia is very diversified in its herpetofauna, 9 species of lizard, 22 turtles, yada, yada, yada. We added 3 more salamanders, which I'm sure that will change by this time next year as well. 4 global endemics. And so we have 147 total species. That does not include subspecies of reptiles and amphibian either. So we have several recently described species, and there's been a lot of taxonomic changes with the new publication from SSAR. I'm sure I've probably missed some things here on the right. Some of the notable things are changes with the genus Hyla and Rana being switched out, some common name changes, and a few new descriptions on salamanders. It's kind of funny, the mid-Atlantic leopard frog, which I helped describe back in about 2017. They went back to the original name that we had originally described it as, and I think that was a result of a lot of the people that were involved with describing that, fussing at them as to why they changed it against our recommendations. But anyway, so there's always something new going on, which is aging Susan rapidly with trying to keep up with everything. Because it has a lot of regulatory implications when you do a lot of name changes, a lot of taxonomic rearrangements, particularly with threatened and endangered species and possession regulations. Kind of like some notable highlights. We have the 2nd edition of the Guide to the Salamanders of Virginia, which I want to thank Susan and Paul Sattler for assisting with the editing and publication of this one. And of course, Brady O'Brien for donating his cover photo. As far as regulatory updates, there's not a bunch of huge regulatory updates going on in the sense from the state perspective, but there are some things going on at the federal level which are kind of stalled right now on a lot of decisions. The Eastern Hellbender was originally found warranted not for federal listing, and then they were re-petitioned and sued by the Center for Biological Diversity. And so Fish and Wildlife went back and did a reanalysis of everything, came back, and they have officially proposed it for federal listing as endangered. Spotted turtle, the word that I have heard on spotted turtle is that decision will be coming out and it'll be not warranted for federal listing, which isn't too surprising, particularly when you start to think of the overall range of distribution of that, along with the fact that it occurs on 43 military bases, 10 alone. So you can imagine the military implications with having to deal with a species that broad. Wood turtle, that one is still somewhere in the ether. We've heard one thing, then we heard that they were going to list it in the Northeast population, not the Great Lakes, but then that kind of fell apart, and so we're not really sure what's going on at this point, whether or not that will be federally listed, but that one definitely has taken some huge declines. Bog turtle, there's some things with bog turtle. The southern population, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, has always been listed by similarity of parents to the federally listed northern population, but they have proposed to strip it of its threatened by similarity of appearance status, and Center for Biological Diversity has also petitioned that for full federal listing as well, but that one's kind of installed as well. And of course, the Center for Biological Diversity has also petitioned the yellow-spotted woodland salamander, which was just recently described. And with that, I'm going to move on to, here's a list of all the contracts and ongoing projects and their associated funding sources. For reptiles and amphibians, primary funding source is state wildlife grants, which is appropriated every year by Congress. And then there's some big regional projects that multi-state projects that are through competitive state wildlife grants. And then this past year, we got a huge grant through Bill Hopkins and Virginia Tech at his lab. We had a $1 million donation from the Allen Family Philanthropies, formerly the Paul G. Allen Foundation, to do a lot of hellbender work, particularly dealing with our problems with illegal cannibalism and some of the stream issues we have. And it's also partially funded as well, equally as funded by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. So it was a total of $2 million for that project. But some of these projects are basically internal projects that I do myself without any direct grant funding other than salary stuff. So Wally Smith at UVA Wise down Southwest Virginia, and Kevin Hamid at Virginia Tech. I contracted with them, those folks, to kind of go out and start looking at these two particular species, Jackson eye being one of concern that was recently described, and poly-eye in particular. And that's what they found today. We're only about a year into this contract, and they've found several new poly-eye sites in Virginia. And I think Ty was talking too about some of the uniqueness about these salamanders, that certain conditions have to be present in order to actually even find some of these animals. This contract goes on for another year, and hopefully we'll have some more definitive results as to their status. Hellbender, this is a high-profile species for the agency. It is, like I said previously mentioned, it is proposed for federal listing as endangered. Hurricane Helene had some decimating impacts both on local communities as well as the wildlife down there in North Carolina and Southwest Virginia. We went down there here this past year to meet with the Forest Service to assess some of the sites. The top is, I think that was South Fork Holston near Buller Fish Hatchery, and the bottom is, that kind of gives you a perspective of what these streams looked like when Hurricane Helene came through, and how it just turned these things into just torrents of flooding event. The bottom picture, unfortunately, that used to be our best site in Virginia, and it was also the highest density of hellbenders anywhere in their range. And that site got completely blown out and scoured out of any rock. And it's now just basically a sand bottom. So we lost that population altogether. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on with hellbenders down there. But obviously Forest Service is wrapped up with trying to get the bike trail and get things restored down there and get the economy up and running again. So this was at one of our sites that was hit heavy by Hurricane Helene, and a year later, it is amazing that some of these animals actually survived. And this is one of our nest boxes at one of the sites that was heavy hit by Helene, and we have reproduction going on at this site. So it is it's amazing how wildlife can somehow survive these stochastic events. And this was about a month ago in early September. Well, I guess a little over a month ago. That's male sitting on, and so he'll stay with those eggs until they've already started to hatch now, but he'll stay with the larvae in the nest until almost April, guarding them. Yeah, this is a big girl. She was at one of the big flood sites too. It's a large female that we found, and we were processing this one. But yeah, she was another survivor of a massive flood event. Forgot what river this one was. It was down in the Holston River. Another big project we have going on is Eastern Tiger Salamander. Particularly with the coastal plain population, we only have 3 known breeding sites. It's a state listed species. We just published, it's available on our website, the Eastern Tiger Salamander Conservation Plan, which was required for us to initiate a translocation project out to Big Woods Wildlife Management Area. All 3 of the known breeding sites are fairly small. And so we are actually going to be harvesting larvae eggs out of the sandhills of North Carolina. The coastal plain animals in the Carolinas and Virginia are genetically all the same. So they're going to be raised up at North Carolina's Zoo. And then they're going to head start in next April. We will officially begin to transport larvae up to Big Woods and introduce them out Big Woods. And Big Woods was selected because of the fact that the habitat is managed appropriately. Tiger salamanders are basically a grassland type species. They like open, notably large vernal ponds and sinkholes. And so this is them. Last year, they started the process to kind of see kind of a trial and see how they did with tiger salamander head starting. This was I think this was a pond actually in North Carolina where they were going to be on private land, and they're basically rescuing these egg masses out like tire ruts and stuff like that. So they bring them in, and this is actually the system that we will be developing. One of the challenges with tiger salamanders is that in the larval stage, they're highly cannibalistic, and so you have to rear them individually. And this is actually a system setup that was developed by, I think, the Baltimore Zoo for rearing dendrobatid, poison dart frogs that they do up there. But North Carolina Zoo is acquiring one of these similar systems to raise hellbenders. Not hellbenders, but tiger salamanders. So this is what I'm talking about. You use these cattle tanks. You have to use these individual cups for each individual tiger salamander larvae. And they tried doing fish boxes, but the fish boxes just took up a lot of space, and you couldn't raise as many larvae per tub, so to speak. And this is their success rate of harvesting 320 eggs. And they ended up releasing 141 larvae. So they did pretty good, and they think that they can even improve on this, because our target is to release 300 to 500 larvae every year for about 5 years to get them well established. Bog turtle is another high-profile species, obviously, in Virginia for the agency. We've got a competitive state wildlife grant going on, and we have shifting over to using camera traps to detect bog turtles. This is much more efficient, much more less labor intensive than going out there and poking mud all day long with a stick, trying to find a little 4-inch turtle buried in the mud. But the camera traps are extraordinarily easy to implement and highly effective at detecting presence. And they can actually starting to look at detecting population sizes. Yeah, so that what happens is basically a bucket turned upside down, got a camera mounted inside it. The little turtle, you put these over top of the rivulets, and the turtle walks through it and gets the picture taken. And we also are developing, along with Amphibian and Reptile Conservancy folks, with developing a training video for law enforcement to raise awareness about the issue of poaching with bog turtles. Chicken turtles, this was our probably our best year was this past year. That's big little male, females are notably bigger. It's 13th year monitoring this population in Isle-White County. Trapping results were 17 turtles, 15 recaps, and 2 new subadults. Like I said, this was our second best year, the other year being last year. And I think this is all directly from the result of the drought of 2023, that these ponds completely dried out and there's no fish in these ponds anymore. So the chicken turtles really love these fishless ponds. And that's a typical kind of a trapping array that I've developed. I'm not the first person that ever did this for turtles, but I think it might be one of the first people who used it for chicken turtles specifically, because you can't use baited traps for chicken turtles. They just don't come to baited traps. So you use kind of these spike nets and drip fence arrays within the pond. Beautiful, beautiful sight. But some days are not as good as others. You're having to go out and pull traps, and it's just a rainy mess all day long. That's some of our local fishery guy there, Chad, and district biologist Pete. So that's give you an idea. It's a good barking tree frog site too. You find barking tree frogs sitting on top of the poles there sometimes. So coming soon. So to give you what's coming in the future here, Operation Hognose. It's going to be working with John White. And we're looking at, we have some concerns that don't see hog noses as much as we used to. There's some folks that have got some long-term monitoring sites. One person in particular, Pablo Delis, out of Shippensburg University, has been out of Wallops Island for years and years. And he said he's only seen one hognose in the past 2 years. We don't see them much down at First Landing, where they used to be fairly common, and some other sites, not First Landing, but Falls Cape. And it's just kind of observational, but that's kind of where things start, was when people simply start to ask the question, don't see them quite as much, wonder what's going on. So it's going to be kind of a reporting system similar to what's going on with the box turtle project. And we are also in conversations with New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Herpetological Associates with Bob Zeppelordi. Anybody knows Bob Zeppelordi? He's kind of the guru with northern pine snakes, and some other folks at SCBI, Smithsonian. And we are along with Forest Service, but we are initiating conversations to start the reintroducing the northern pine snake to Virginia. So that's pretty exciting. So with that, that's about it. We had one that popped up that was pretty credible. That was around the Troutville area, Tinker's Cliff area. That was the last one. That was in 2013. Prior to that, we haven't seen one or any reports since '89. But you know, I'm still kind of a little skeptical about the whole thing. It seemed to be pretty credible, a good photo. But the guy didn't even know what it was, and he's standing there holding this giant pine snake, and he didn't even know what it was. But anyway, so give him benefit of the doubt. But this isn't like a real secretive snake. I mean, you can go up to New Jersey, if you know where you're going in New Jersey, you can find up in the Pine Barrens. So it's not like this little fossorial small snake that's real secretive you can't find. If there's pine snakes out there, somebody at this point, with all the herpers and everybody that's out there, should have found a pine snake and sent a photo in. But yeah, we're still always hopeful, but you know, nothing yet, really. So, anything else? All right, appreciate the time. Thank you.